But the main purpose and role of the African Astronomical Society and my role is to ensure that, we can grow astronomy on the continent. That means,
Mm-hmm.
bringing more and more young people into the field of astronomy and ensuring that, we can capture the interest in STEM in STEM subject, and that they can also aspire to become astronomers or become scientists, that contribute to the growth of astronomy and space sciences, on the continent. The other thing, of course, is that we support initiatives that that actually help the community, and these are things, like in terms of outreach, reaching
Mm-hmm.
out, to learners and to university students, and when we also support various grants,
Okay.
give certain grants, for example, we've got the seed research grant, which supports young people from anywhere, on the continent, that are looking, to become an astronomer, but not have the, those resources.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Root of the Suns podcast with your girl and with Annie. If you are new here, welcome to the show. It's always such a pleasure to have new listeners on the show. But if you're returning, thank you so much. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to like and subscribe the video and share it with others so that they can listen to this really informative session, and share it with the world. Now, let's get into today's episode. Astronomy in Africa has long been led by countries like South Africa, Namibia, Morocco, Egypt, and Algeria with their optical observatories. However, this field is evolving rapidly. Since 2019, 12 African nations have launched 41 satellites, with most being national projects and the rest involving multilateral collaborations. The future of African astronomy is promising, with achievements like the South Africa's Meerkat Array, positioning the continent as a major player in the global space science. Today, I'm so excited because we're joined by Dr. Charles Takalana. He is the director of the African Astronomy Society, otherwise known as AFAS, to discuss the upcoming AFAS conference. And also, we chat about Africa's role in astronomy, and of course, so much more. Let's take a listen. Good morning, Dr. Charles. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning, Anne. I think it's great to be here.
It's so lovely
Yeah.
to chat with you today, and I'm so excited to talk about everything that you do. But I think just to set the scene, and before we dive into your work, could you kindly introduce yourself to our audience, giving us a brief overview of your education and how it actually led you into this field of astronomy?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm Dr. Charles Takalana. So I'm currently the Deputy Director for the Office of Astronomy for Development. It's an international office. It's based in Cape Town in South Africa. But I also currently hold the position of Interim Head of Secretariat for the African Astronomical Society, which is a position I was initially full head of Secretariat for the past almost 4 years now.
Mhm.
And they'll now be appointing, my successor as I transition into my new role at the Office of Astronomy for Development. But yeah, so I hold a PhD in astronomy from the University of the Witwatersrand, in South Africa. And I think, the thing that drove me into doing astronomy, was just, initially, my curiosity about the sciences. You know,
Mm.
I I I I I never really thought that everything, that I did, up to some point in my life would lead me directly into astronomy. The
Yeah.
the the fun thing that I actually tell people is that when I first registered at university, I walked in to do a biochemistry and botany degree, and I walked out with a physics and math degree at the end of it. So
Two different paths.
yeah, I ended up going in a completely different path, and and
Yeah.
and and I think that's the thing that's exciting about science. The more you learn about some stuff, and and they could change the course of the course of your life as well. I think the turning point for me was when I learned about, the Square Kilometer Array project, which is this really big, telescope project, which is an international collaboration that South Africa is a part of. And around the time I was doing my undergraduate, South Africa had just been awarded, the bid to be the country that actually hosts this big infrastructure, which is going to be the biggest science infrastructure in the world. And I wanted to be a part of that,
Mm,
to be a part of something, that puts South Africa and that puts the African continent, on the map, and to show the world that Africa is capable of doing cutting edge science and leading, in the field in a field, that is as complex as astronomy.
mm. What a wonderful backstory of how you started and how you got here. And then this also actually helps with my follow-up question. You said you went in to do one degree and then you came out doing astronomy. And I think that maybe it might be because a lot of people are unaware of the field of astronomy as a whole. So for someone who is like, okay, what is the big deal? Why astronomy? Can you paint a picture of why it's really important, especially even in the setting of Africa, why we should be interested in this field?
Yeah, I think, one of the main reasons why we should be, why we should have an interest in this field of astronomy is firstly, for the fact that it answers some of the biggest questions that humanity has had, ever since our existence. Who
Mhm.
are we? Where do we come from? Right? Astronomy, helps us, define our journey, as humanity and as a species. It's sort of like, if you don't know, where you come from, then how do you really know where you're going? How do we sort of, ensure that, we can ensure the survival of humanity, for example,
Yeah.
by studying other worlds and how they've evolved, we could be able to do those those sort of things. And also I feel that, all the countries that have taken, fields like space science and astronomy seriously are actually, the countries that have actually gone to develop. I mean, if you look at the US, they joined the
Yeah.
space race. They build telescopes, big telescopes like the Hubble Space Telescope. They've recently, launched, the James Webb Space Telescope, which is doing, exciting science. They took, the science of astronomy, seriously, and by them doing that, they were able to sort of also develop their own countries as well. And I think that in Africa, that's something that we should also be doing. And I think that, with things like the Southern African Large Telescope, and the Square Kilometer Array, we are already moving in that direction, where we
Mm.
we are taking the field, of science and astronomy, really seriously. And then I think, based on the work that we do on the ground, I hope that we can influence our policymakers as well to take, this field of astronomy really seriously. But, much a much bigger picture than that is that, in Africa, we sort of see the sciences and see, science like astronomy, for example, as something that is too far away from us.
Yeah.
Like, here growing up with the, for me, for example, they said, oh no, it's a science for the white people, for
Mm.
example, right? The you as a black you as a black child or black person couldn't even imagine yourself, getting into the field of astronomy. But I think that we should own science. If you look at the history, on the African continent, the very early people used the stars, for things like navigations and things like that, right? The fact that they could actually look at the stars and actually apply it, in something in their daily lives actually meant that they were actually already doing science.
Mm.
So science and the field of astronomy is not something new to Africans. It's something that they've already been doing. And I think that, obviously, with the history, of the continent and things that happened over the last 2 or 3 centuries, I think that all of those things then faded away, from the African people. And it's something that we should try to, inspire and sort of reinstill, in the African people as well.
Definitely. I mean, when I think of astronomy or space, I think of America. I don't necessarily think of Africa as such. And you're right, it used to be the white man's science. I mean, even in South Africa, I think there was the one South African, Mark Shuttleworth. He went up to space, you know. So even for that, I think it's pretty hard sometimes for people to imagine themselves. But I think that's why you, for example, as a visible role model, it really helps for a young person to be like, hey, I want to be like Dr. Charles as well. And I think that's very important. So, with that being said, let's talk about your role as the director of the African Astronomical Society. What does that actually involve?
Yeah, I mean that involves a lot of things, but I think a lot of things. But the main purpose and role of the African Astronomical Society and my role is to ensure that we can grow astronomy on the continent. That means
Mm-hmm.
bringing more and more young people into the field of astronomy and ensuring that we can capture the interest in STEM in STEM subject, and that they can also aspire to become astronomers or become scientists that contribute to the growth of astronomy and space sciences uh, on the continent. The other thing, of course, is that we support initiatives that actually help the community, and these are things like in terms of outreach, reaching
Mm-hmm.
out to learners and to university students, and when we also support various grants,
Okay.
give certain grants, for example, we've got the seed research grant, which supports young people from anywhere on the continent that are looking to become an astronomer, but not have the those resources. We
Mm.
also look at things like recognizing students that have done really well within the field of astronomy. So we have what is the African Astronomical Society MSc and PhD prize that recognizes the work that young people are doing. And I think by really creating a culture of recognition, we can then have more and more young people actually believing that in themselves, and that as young African people, they can contribute to the growth of astronomy on the continent. And the African Astronomical Society is it's a membership society, which means that my job and the job of our executive committee is to serve the members of the society, to look at where their needs are, and how we can support their needs, and also how we can use that firstly to grow astronomy on the continent, but also to to then also ensure that we are the voice of astronomy on the African continent. This means things like engaging with policymakers, engaging with funders, and ensuring that the astronomers on the continent are well resourced for them to be able to do the science that they can do, and be able to contribute to cutting edge resources globally.
Mm. What a brilliant organization. And I think support is very important from the financial side, in terms of grants and everything, but also, as you say, that you as executive, you serve the members. So how did the society come about? What was the vision when it was created?
Yeah. So the African Astronomical Society has a very long history. Not all of it very bright and exciting and vibrant as it is now. I
Uh-huh,
think it was initially ramped up in 2009. I was
uh-huh.
still even in high school at the time. So it was done in 2009, and a group of astronomers said, we want to establish this African Astronomical Society, and they came together, and they put together its first constitution, and they had the first executive committee. And initially, it was meant to be hosted in Ghana,
Okay.
and basically what happened is that because there was no resourcing that was put into it, just in terms of funding and some of the other things that you need to run, a vibrant
Mhm.
society. Nothing actually happened, for many years since 2009, 2010, until in 2018, the South African Department of Science and Innovation, said, no, there is a need for an African, astronomical society. And then they committed some resources into to establishing the society. And at the time, I was working at the Department of Science and Innovation,
Mhm.
and when they you know at the same time I was doing my PhD studies as well. So when they did the whole elections for the first executive committee, I was what you call an early career sort of researcher, that was
Yes.
you know elected to serve on the executive committee.
Oh, okay.
And being based at the Department of Science and Innovation, they were like, you know what, since you're already involved, in this organization. Maybe it's actually something that we could have you working with the executive committee to sort of have it going and build it up. And I think when they decided at the time that now it was time for it to grow its wings and and move out of the department. I also decided at the time that I think that I would like to apply for the job to actually take this forward, because I have a very big passion for
Mm,
the growth of this field of astronomy in Africa. So 2019 we got our constitution. We had a new executive committee. Department of Science and Innovation injected the resources that we needed to take the society to the next level. And I think since 2019 and until now, we've been running with many exciting collaborations and partnerships. And I think the thing that defines FS is that we realize that we cannot exist as an island.
yeah.
So from very early on, we decided that we would collaborate, with similar, societies in Europe and also again in the Americas. And by those collaborations, we're able to, to sort of build these relationships that got efforts to be quickly recognized, by some of these other big international organization as well. And then that helped us grow, to sort of the level that we are at now. Though we still have a huge challenge that we don't have, a large number of astronomers on the continent, but I think that, over the years we have sort of been achieving, most of our goals.
Mm, exciting. That's very exciting. So it's been like 5 years since, like 5 beautiful years where things have actually started to move. And I'd like to discuss that. So, what are some of, even in your role, what are some milestones that you're very proud of that have achieved? I know you really spoke of some of the collaborations, but are there other things that happened in these past 5 years that you'd love to mention?
Yeah, I think for I'll start with the most recent ones, because these
Hmm.
are the first ones in my mind. I think one of our biggest achievements was just towards the end of last year. The African Astronomical Society was applied for observer status on the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space. and
Wow.
and 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 we are now an observer member officially. We've just took part in our first scientific committee meeting recently, and gave our the first statement at as an observer member on UN Corpus. And this is very important, because this means that Africa can actually have a voice
Mm,
in the structures, right? Because some of the members, they include your biggest your country space agencies, represented by through the diplomatic channels. You got international astronomical associations like the IAU, who sit on that. You also got the European Astronomical Society. There was no voice for the astronomy community in Africa. And I think that this what makes this one of our biggest really achievement, that we can now be the voice of our community on that body. And another really big milestone I think that we had was, recently there was the first International Astronomical Union General Assembly that was in South Africa. It took place in Cape Town. So to give people an idea of what the International Astronomical Union is, this is the main body for astronomy, globally.
wow.
Most people like to give the example that we're all in schools, all happy and learning about our planets. There were nine of them, and all of a sudden there were eight, right? So this is the
Yes.
body that, yeah, that actually decides that this is a planet, this is not a planet.
Okay.
And for the first time in the over 100 years history of this organization, this
Mm,
meeting was hosted on the continent. And I
wow.
think that one of our main roles was rallying the whole African community into saying that though this meeting is taking place in South Africa, the whole African continent should own it. And I think we had a large number of initiatives looking at supporting researchers, looking at supporting students. We even had an MSc bursary where we supported three students, one from Mauritius, one from Madagascar, and one from Nigeria.
Mm,
Uh, and then, of course, leading up to the rollout of the actual event itself, the African Astronomical Society was was the organizer, with this event being hosted by the Department of Science and Innovation and the National Research Foundation. So, it was something that was really exciting, but we wanted it to be more than just a meeting, right? We wanted it to have, a lasting legacy, beyond just hosting this big meeting in 2024. So we came up with what is the legacy of the IU General Assembly. We don't want this to be the last IU General Assembly on the African continent. Though South Africa was the first one to host it, why can't another African country host it again
Yeah.
in the future? And it shouldn't happen in the next 100 years, but happen
Soon.
as soon as we can. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so impressive. Kudos to you because those are rapid achievements in such a short space of time. While we were getting ready for this interview, I also saw another exciting achievement that happened in the African space. It's the launch of the Prime telescope in South Africa. So I know maybe some people might have heard of the meerkat. They might have heard of the other ones that are here in South Africa. Could you explain what this is all about and its actual purpose for those who are unaware?
Yeah. So the Prime telescope is a 1.8 meter, wide field infrared, telescope. And so basically when you say 1.8 meter, you are describing the size of the mirror. A telescope has a mirror where all the light from space will come, and then, it
Okay.
reflects that light into its instruments. So that mirror is 1.8 meters. And it is a near infrared camera, but what makes primes, special compared to most infrared observatories, today, is that it actually has four detectors that are the same detectors that are going to be on the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. So the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope is NASA's next generation, Hubble telescope. So Prime
Okay.
actually has the four detectors that are going to be on the Nancy Grace Roman. Well, Nancy Grace Roman will have, I think, between 12 and 8, between 12, I think that it will have 18 of those detectors. Prime has four of them, but I think that it also gives, a good idea of how these detectors will sort of perform, on a ground-based, observatory before, they launch the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope in the
Mm,
next couple of years when they're done with construction. But some of the exciting sciences that it's going to be doing is that it's going to be, looking at detecting exoplanets. So exoplanets, planets that are similar to our own, but it's going to be looking for them in other solar systems, right?
okay.
And it's also going to be you doing time domain astronomy or transient science, and this means that it's going to be looking, at various events that that take place somewhere in our universe, that and help us understand our universe better. But it also, positions our continent in South Africa, at the forefront of global astronomy research, and
Mm,
also, like I mentioned, due to it being a collaboration or us being in a collaborative space, we are now then able to, to work with esteemed researchers from different parts of the world.
mm. That's so impressive. So, with this telescope, is it going to be African astronomers who are primarily working and doing the research here in South Africa, or is it going to be an involvement with others from different parts of the world?
Yeah, so it's a collaboration. So the South African Astronomical Observatory is one of the collaborators, and they of course, provided the site for the telescope and will continue with maintenance of the telescope, going into the future. But Osaka University in Japan
Oh,
is
okay.
you know is was one of the main partners, in the collaboration, and also the North American, or the National American Space Agency, or NASA, through the University of Maryland, are also collaborate on the project, and hence, it's using the same four detectors that are on the Nancy Grace, that will be on the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. So it is a collaboration, and I think that, the data will then also become eventually public, where
Mm-hmm.
anyone, from the world, including, African researchers, would have access to it. But I think that, almost immediately, the partners, including South Africa, will have direct access to that data, and also, astronomers on the African continent collaborating with South African astronomers, will then also have access to the data as well.
Oh, so exciting, exciting times. So there is the upcoming Office conference that's happening in March, and it will gather astronomers and researchers from Africa as well as the rest of the world. Could you explain to us what the main theme for this year's conference is all about and the actual purpose and importance of this really exciting conference that I think is going to happen in this month because this is when the episode is going to be released in March.
Yeah, so the African Astronomical Society conference, its main theme is always to sort of showcase, the research coming out of Africa, the research being done by Africans, and providing, African researchers the platform to share with one another what they're doing and creating a collaborative environment. I think that the biggest theme of this year's meeting is EFAS reinventing itself. Though we are just 5 years old, we're undergoing various transition phases. This annual conference this year actually also happens to be our General Assembly. So our
Okay.
General Assembly is where we elect the new executive committee, and we look at we look at everything that we've done as the society and ways that we can improve as the society, moving forward for the next 3 years, before we have our our next General Assembly. So I think that it's going to be a redefining moment for the African Astronomical Society with firstly with what it has achieved so far, but also with what the outlook is for the future, given that in the next few years SK is going to be complete is going to be complete with construction, and you're going to need more and more young African astronomers to be coming in and doing sciences with those instruments, and this conference is one platform for them to start having those conversations.
Exciting. And I think the fact that it brings in so many people, they can have access to other people who might have technologies that are maybe a more advanced or other resources. So I think that's always the great part of a conference is that networking ability. And you have been dialing down on the issue of collaborations in our conversation. So how does collaborations, maybe not only just amongst the societies across the world, but even with, let's say, governments, because you said that you work with the Department of Science and Innovation, really help shape the future of astronomy in Africa?
Look, I think collaboration helps us not to duplicate efforts, and I think one of the biggest mistakes that people often do is that you want to do something that someone is already doing.
Mm,
And that way we all go forward slowly together. We move very slow
mm,
to some destination. But if you come together, you bring together the resources, you can go much further, much faster together. And I, like I mentioned earlier, that this has been the story of the African Astronomical Society. If we had not collaborated, we had chosen to be an island, would have not have moved, anywhere. And I think that this is also something that beyond even astronomy should be adopted into sciences in general. That we work together. I mean, for example, with where I'm based now at the Office of Astronomy for Development, we look at how we can collaborate in within interdisciplinary spaces, and this can also sort of help with the developmental agendas, for the African continent, for example, and for the world, to sort of help developing countries also catch up with the developed world. And I
mm.
think collaboration is one of the best ways that we could sort of achieve those sort of goals.
That's so true. That's so true. Dr. Charles, as we are wrapping up this conversation, I'm just thinking of maybe somebody who's listening to this and is an aspiring astronomer and they're based in Kenya or they're based in Malawi. How are they able to be part of this society? How do they get involved?
Yeah, so in terms of student membership, I think we allow student membership, from sort of any sort of school going towards undergraduate studies and honors, so they can apply for membership. But what we also have a a large number of young people writing in, to us that want to start their own activities or want to, for
Mm.
example, astronomy clubs and things like that. So we ensure that we can provide them, with whatever help that we can for them to be able, to sort of establish, all of those small scale activities that they want to do, sort of enhance, activities, within the areas that they're from. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So those resources do exist if they reach out.
Yes, they do.
Oh, fantastic. So, final question. Looking ahead, like you said, the society is still pretty young, even though you are evolving. What impact do you think that the society will have in the African science landscape, both short and long term, do you think?
Look, I think that it's, given that, Africa's got this very young population, I think
Mm,
that the society sits, within a space where it can build one of the strongest astronomy community globally. And I think that we're already moving very positively, in that direction. Like I said, with the collaboration, with the exchanges that are sort of already happening, with various initiatives. Just yesterday I was at the development of Africa through radio astronomy meeting, and you can see a sort of, upcoming people, that we can see it, and it makes me very, very excited to sort of see,
mm,
those sort of initiatives happen. So the future of Africa looks bright, and I think the role of FAS is going to, to ensure that we can nurture, and help these young people realize, their dreams, continue, supporting them, providing them, with the resources they need, continue to provide them with community, because community is a very important thing. And I think as
yeah.
a membership society, that is our main role, is to provide them with the community and to say, look, you are not alone. There's a whole lot of
Mm,
us that are, that want to see the field of astronomy going forward. There's a whole lot of us that want to see the continent of Africa also going forward.
mm. Exciting. Definitely. Community is so important. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I learned so much, and I'm sure even our listeners learned a lot. I wish you all of the best in this upcoming conference and all the exciting things I think that are going to come from the work that's being done in this field of astronomy in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
And to
Bye.
everybody else who's tuned in, thank you for listening to another episode of the Root of the Sun podcast with your girl and with an E. Until next time, goodbye.